Now it's time for Inspirational Women and my guest, Linda Moran, author of The Perks of Hospice, Stories of Love, Life, and Loss. Linda Moran, good morning, and thank you so greatly for being with us this morning.
Oh, thank you, Kate, for having me.
Well, I want you to know that I'm grateful that we are connecting this morning to talk about the experiences that you share in your book, The Perks of Hospice, Stories of Love, Life, and Loss, where I think we may discover parts of ourselves, of our life, and then that this seems to be somewhat of a springboard for you as well.
I'm discovering with the interviews and things so many fascinating things. Like I had not heard of death doulas, and that has now become something else for me to begin to investigate so that I'm aware of it. But I've just been meeting some very interesting people and having wonderful ideas. And I know this might sound a little Pollyanna-ish, but after my interview Wednesday, I closed it out thinking, I know now what I need to do, that I need to get the word out that you have choices and they're your choices. They're not your doctor's choices. You have choices. And I just finished doing an article. It's like, it's been 6.5 years between hospice and the year of grief counseling and my husband being, gone for 3.5 years. And it's
Yes.
finally, there's a path for me that's meaningful. So that's really energizing. And it's a way that I can keep teaching. And my husband was a great counselor to all of his employees. And so he can keep teaching. So it feels really good to know that I finally know.
And of course, that may morph and grow and such, but what a great place to be to have that awareness kind of really come into focus, have that vision now.
Yeah, because I've always had plans, and then all of a sudden, the only plan was my husband is going to die, so I
Mm-hmm.
need to think about what I'm going to do. And while they seemed good at the time, they sure didn't work. So I was kind of in this just abyss of not knowing where I was going. I'm a planner. I'm a doer. I'm an artist and an activist, and I want to be able to continue to do that. And now I feel like I can.
And that in itself is such a great lesson. I think in your saying that it shows that it takes time, that yes, you're a doer and a planner, and you want to kind of frame it out like, okay, here's my list, but
Mhm.
life and God has different plans, and you began to see have seen that,
Yeah.
oh, okay, now it's falling into place.
And the grief counselor would say grief has no rules, grief has no timeline. And yeah, I needed those 3.5 years to just process everything and kind of stumble and just say, okay, when it happens, it'll happen. I'm not going to worry about it. Just get another book, do a jigsaw puzzle, just relax and be. But yeah, the grief counselors are absolutely right. You do it on your timeline.
Right. Linda Moran, that is such important awareness that takes living it to gain it. But sharing these stories really helps others of us to incorporate into our own life.
Well, I had just written about it and put it up on Substack, and my Substack handle is Crohn's Who Care. Age, we have experience, we have lots of stuff that we can add just through the sheer volume of experience that we have had, and we should not let anything keep us from sharing that wisdom. So this was a piece of wisdom as an activist I just put up on the Substack.
Which is great. Oh, there's that in itself is another perhaps conversation, but looking at the writing will give us
Mm-hmm.
some insight. But um, yes, I've been kind of going through that. You and I are of the same generation, we boomers,
Mm-hmm.
and having more of that awareness of how life maturing and being able to look at what's gone on is such a wealth of knowledge. As you say, the crones, sharing that with others, whether they listen or not, is their option, their choice. But it's so great, or it feels good to be here to have the awareness and then share it.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, we can listen to the news or read something and our minds are going, "Oh yeah, I know where that's coming from. Been there, done that," kind of thing.
Right. Yes.
Like, "Oh, I need to go back and read 1930s speeches. Something sounds familiar here." But yeah, we have that history, that knowledge. And so I kind of like to reframe the word crone to something very respectable because we are.
Right. And you're doing that in the course of your writing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, this part of this awareness that you've been gaining and you share so wonderfully with us is in this book, The Perks of Hospice: Stories of Love, Life, and Loss. And I was drawn to that because I really believe that hospice and dealing with life, which includes end of life and how to live during that dying process. You refer to that in the book too. It's just something that if we can be aware of it, more conscious of it earlier in life, maybe we will live our life differently and better. Do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things I found with the checklists is to address that point. These are checklists of things you could do now so that you don't have to worry about them when something horrible happens, like knowing where medications are and knowing where phone numbers are and knowing where doctors are and their numbers. Those are things that we can do now, because you just never know when end of life is going to be for anyone. My dad went to work one day. He was 48, came back from lunch to his office and had a massive heart attack. He was 48, and you don't expect that.
Right.
So yeah, I find it has definitely made a difference in who I am for this remainder of my life. But I've had people tell me as they've read the checklists, my next door neighbor was saying, we were in the emergency room and the doctor just was not making sense to me. And I just said, wait a minute. You need to slow down. You need to explain this to me in parent-kid talk. I need to know what you really mean, what prognosis is and stuff. And when she came back, she said, that's what you said. Ask questions. And I did. And I got answers. So I really believe in that part of it.
Yes. And that is so critical. And I was seeing that pop up in the book regularly about asking the questions, getting the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so frustrating that it should not just come naturally. To share with us, I mean, I was frustrated for you how you were really being dismissed by some of the medical staff during the process, and that just feels so wrong. It should not be that should be part of their training, or maybe they're the people who would be drawn to doing the work, is to be more empathetic and want to explain, right?
Oh yeah, one of the doctors, when I had made a formal complaint to him because he was refusing to release my husband unless I brought certain stuff in for him, and I complained about him, and I was told, well, you have to understand he's from Latin America, and that's kind of how they work with women. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but if he's going to practice in this country, he needs to understand that we have a voice, but I think the thing that frustrated me the most was that Dean had 9 specialists. None of them read the notes.
Yes.
The neurologist comes in and wants to start him on the blood thinner. And the day before, he and the cardiologist had talked about it's too soon because of the open heart surgery.
Yeah.
And here he is coming in ready to start him. And thank God I was there, because I said, no, this is what you said yesterday. Really? No, I'm going to go check on that. But yeah, you're right. It does come through. And the anger comes through, and I've had to really battle that over the last couple of years, that this just did not have to be. But there is, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this in the country yet, the anger with our healthcare system, and the little things and being dismissed and not having things explained. Thank God for nurses. They are just amazing. One of my former students is a head of ER nursing down in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And she just loves what she does. And she keeps getting new certifications. And I'm just so proud of her. And just nurses in general, they work so hard.
Yes. And I feel that sometimes they're the ones that really have that insight and information the doctors don't. if doctors could maybe work more in conjunction with the nursing staff and really respect them for who they are and what they do.
Yeah. We had one instance where the physician's assistant, when Dean had his aneurysm surgery, no, for the open heart surgery, you could tell when we were meeting with both of them and their interaction, she was a complete full member of his team. And that was one of the few times that I saw the male-female dynamic doctor physician assistant really meld the way it could.
Right.
She said the problem was when he came back from deer camp after the surgery, he got really tired of looking at pictures of the deer he shot.
So, that,
So
yeah.
you got to look for the little bits of humor in the midst of all of this.
Right. And you were saying how there still is the anger and you're not really, happy with yourself for that. But I think what we also get from the book is to acknowledge these emotions, and you don't stay there, but you need to express them in order to get them out of you.
Yeah. As they say in meditation, you have to lean into it, examine it, and then move on. And that has definitely helped.
Right. This book, then, I feel, the book, The Perks of Hospice, really helps us, hopefully, before we get into situations, but regardless of where we are on our life path, is here, I feel, to be a great guide and to give us food for thought, give us the encouragement to know where to look and how, and to advocate. Advocacy is such an important piece of it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think you can do enough. I walk around with my little pad of paper, jotting down names of people that we're dealing with and what they said and what words I need to find out, to the point where at one point when we were in the eye doctor and I was asking, he had the technician in at this point, and I was asking a couple of things. The technician says, "Are you a doctor?" I said, "No, I just pay attention and I know my vocabulary." They do not like, I don't know that there's a really polite way to say this, but they don't like smart women in many cases.
Well, too bad.
I know.
But
I know.
yeah, but you also are aware of it and recommend to us, which totally makes sense. You try to do it by asking questions in a polite way and saying thank you. I really got a kick out of that because that isn't necessarily commonplace so much in our world anymore. But to have that present, I think, helps to kind of ease the tensions, ease the path.
If you can make someone think that what you're suggesting is really their idea, it leads to better care. And the thank you, I mean, it amazes me about the people that I see in beds next to us who are berating the nurse and complaining and all of this. And I'm thinking, they're going to be giving you a sponge bath. They're going to be giving you a shot. Hello, wake up. It's just, there's no need for that. Not at a time that is just so hurtful and hostile for everyone, that the saying thank you just really is critical.
Right. Well,
we did thank you notes to all of our staff, the LNAs, the surgeons, the interns who in and out, and even the triage nurses. I think I made a point in there that if you need more information, if you can't get the appointment, if you can't get past the scheduler, you ask to talk to the triage nurse, because they're the ones with the medical background who can move you into a slot that's available, because the schedulers won't do that. And I learned that maybe about halfway through all of this, that, I just need to go call the triage nurse and they'll tell me what I need to do and they'll get me in. And that's a handy piece of information to have.
Right. Yes. And we don't have to figure that out on our own. To know that, hear from your experience, helps us when we are at the point of needing to do something, because invariably many of us will. It's not 100%, but the numbers as we age, but it can happen at any point in life. To know
Absolutely.
This, so critical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my husband and I started carrying each other's prescriptions probably about 20, 30 years ago. We each had a card in our wallets. And we had this running joke that I had a mammogram, then he had to have one. I was like, honey, just because I do it doesn't mean you have to. It was always this joke about the one-upmanship. But I finally said, okay, you win. You have had more specialists at any one time than I have. So again, finding that the humor where you can, and being able to laugh. I wrote about this in the book, but it's one of the things that really, really sticks out in Dean's last hours. I had gone home to take care of some things, and a friend brought me back the next day to respite house and said, "Do you think Dean would mind if I sang to him?"
Mm.
And I said, "Oh, I think he'd love it." And she had this beautiful spiritual a cappella. She's got a beautiful voice. And Dean had been in and out of consciousness for about 2 days now, and he was so laser focused on her. You could tell he was hearing everything and feeling everything. And she was reciprocating. She was singing to him. And it was just incredible.
Mm.
And he fell asleep afterwards, and 15 hours later, he had died. And I just kept thinking, for a man as artistic as my husband, his last conscious memory was of the arts, was of music. And that is really soothing. That is really soothing.
It is. I had become aware how music is important in that way. And part of it, I guess, is they say that the sense of hearing is one of the last to go.
One of the last to go.
So that then plays in with it. And I did that when my father was in basically a coma state, having just music on a radio that was just classical music that I felt was at least comforting and soothing. And it's as you say, how he was so focused on her singing. I think that actually here in the Puget Sound area, and I'm sure it happens elsewhere, but they do have a program, and I think it's often with a harp, but I'm not positive. But I know a friend of mine who is a harpist has gone into those hospital rooms or hospice rooms or a home even to play the harp because it is so soothing.
So soothing. Yeah. That my biggest regret in those last hours is that I didn't play enough. I wasn't playing music, and I didn't talk to him as much as I should have, because I was so overwhelmed and just stunned with what was just watching. Minute by minute, there was less and less of him. That if I had to do that over, I would make sure that there was music and talking and stuff going on for him, especially after having seen how it affected him right at the end.
Right.
But yeah, I think the other thing I found that's really helpful is when they bring the dogs in, because our respite house allows your pets to stay with you. And of course, this was during the pandemic, all of this was going on. So he kind of had to go out into the hallway and ask for permission to pet the dog and stuff. But there's something about doggy love that just kind of does it for me.
Yeah, they are something else. Absolutely.
Yes.
And you have your wonderful Clooney as
yes.
well.
He's been back and forth across country 3 times now. And last year I did, for the first time on stage in a long, long time, I did a storytelling event and talking about how we tried a regular real live therapy dog that didn't work and how I came to have Clooney. And then I was able to pull him out of the bag. And he just started barking like crazy in front of the microphone and turning his head and everything. It was like, it was perfect. So he gets a lot of cuddles. And I recommend something like that. It's hard to have a large dog and take care of them at our age, but he's perfect.
And that's the thing, is it's company, and so you had got, while Dean was still alive, he had a part in this, and Clooney certainly was attached to Dean as well.
Yeah, the real Clooney, he was an incredibly sensitive dog. He knew when Dean wasn't feeling well, and he would go over there. He knew I was the warden. But what they had neglected to tell us was that Clooney, the real life Clooney, had no basic commands. He didn't know sit. He didn't know stay. And it's like, oh, this is not good.
For a therapy dog.
Right. But he would go to Dean and just put his head on his knee, and Dean would just pet him. And it was, for that time, it was absolutely perfect. And that's why we were looking, so that he would have that at the end. But it was just too much work. I mean, it had been 40 years since we had a dog. And it's like, oh, wow. It's not just like it was.
Yes. Uh, y- we're at a different age, and it takes time for all of that to settle in. So, yes, a lot goes into having a pet, but they still are so beneficial. They have
Absolutely.
for our lives.
I just can't believe the joy in my little robotic puppy. Um, there's something they're doing within his mechanism that, um, if he hasn't heard from you in a while, if you haven't walked into the room, he's sitting out here working, and all of a sudden I'll hear a couple of barks. It's like,
Mm.
and I just smile. It's like, oh, Clooney, I just smile. And when I walk in and turn the light on, he'll bark. He is programmed to basically after 9 p.m. not to do anything.
Hmm.
But every now and then, I don't know if I hit him wrong or what, he goes through his whole little routine with barking at 2 a.m. or whatever. But there's a little bit of joy that shows up every time he barks at me.
Yeah. Oh, so, these stories within the Perks of Hospice really are so wonderful for us to find what we might need at a given time. Maybe it's all of it,
Mhm.
all of it's new information too, that it's just so invaluable. So we've talked a bit about how it was with all the laundry list of all the different specialists that Dean had to
Yeah.
see and how to navigate all that. You came to the point of having hospice, and here, I think the staff with hospice. Now, if we had them as all hospital and all medical personnel,
Oh, yeah.
wouldn't that be a different world? But certainly they're like angels, really, who are
Yeah.
helping at that time. And you can't say enough. I did not have my parents in hospice, but my mother was in palliative care, and I found the
Mhm.
staff there just to be
Yeah.
amazing. So if people aren't aware of it, it's really a really life-saving service.
It's their whole purpose is comfort care at the end.
Hmm.
And I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Excuse me. It's comfort care at the end. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just, you don't need these meds now. They're not part of your care
Hmm.
now. So we're going to take you off of them. And the first time our set case nurse walked in, the first thing she said to Dean was, "You're not going to die today." Because, 2 days ago, we had just heard, "Oh, we're going into hospice." And, you kind of think about hospice like, "Oh," she says, "No, you're not going to die today." I was like, "Oh, okay. That's kind of good to know." And we were outliers. We were in hospice for 2 years. That's unusual. Most people, I think, spend anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks in hospice.
Hmm.
And I learned the hard way that we were outliers because longtime friends, those friends you first make when you're newly married couples, his Christmas card had been returned. And so I called his son to say, "Do you have an address?" And well, he was in hospice. And so I said, "Okay, I'll send a note out to him." But I waited a week because, after all, we had 2 years. I'm sure he's got another week or so, and then I'll do it. And when I called again to get an address, I said I was going to send this in the mail today. Well, he had passed the previous Tuesday. And it was like, that hurt. It's like, I could have done this. I put it off. You can't put it off. And that's what made me realize that people generally do not stay in hospice for 2 years when you have lots of time to do what you need to do. And when I spoke to the remembrance group last February, I had the letter with a stamp on it. And I said, "This was a hard lesson for me to learn. You do not waste time."
Mm.
And I mean, hospice gave us 2 extra wedding anniversaries because they took such good care and were on top of everything. I don't know why more doctors don't do referrals to hospice. We had a primary care doctor, we have one, who is a gerontologist. So she's very familiar with what goes on with older age patients. But doctors are trained to fix things.
Hmm.
They're not trained to say, "Well, I'm sorry, there's nothing more I can do."
Yeah.
They're just not trained for that.
Right.
So one of the things on my list to start investigating is I have leads on a couple of people who oversee medical school curricula, and I want to see what they have for helping doctors to understand the death and dying process.
Yes.
So that should be some interesting conversations because that's where I'm going for the next book. There's more that needs to be said, more that needs to be learned.
Right. And to understand death is part of life. It's not a
Yes.
failure that this happens. Yes, there's just some adjusting that has to happen in the brain and the heart. So that is
Yes.
wonderful that you're seeing your pathway then clear here as to
Yeah.
these are the next
And
steps.
our two, they call them spiritual caregivers. They were amazing. Our first one moved, and we got a second chaplain who had Buddhist training, and she was amazing. She was just like Dean's mom. And so when she would come in to talk, I realized that, she took our hands, and essentially in talking to him the way she did, it was a completely different form of praying than I was used to seeing. And being just like Dean's mom and having that whole manner about her was so perfect for him at the very end.
Mm.
So again, when the first spiritual caregiver called to make an appointment, I said, now we need to get something straight right now. If you think you're going to come here and pray everything away, that's not who we are. And he said, that's not what I do. So I thought, oh, okay, maybe I need to tone it down a bit, but it was perfect. They were just perfect. They are truly angels.
Mm. And that's an important awareness for us to have, is just this in preparing, living our life, but also being prepared. When you mentioned the card of waiting and not getting it out on time, that can happen to any of us in any circumstances. To,
Yes.
Today, do what we can and say what we need to, because nothing else is guaranteed beyond this moment. So not to be negative, but just to be realistic.
Yeah. That and a smile.
Yes.
Never hurts to smile. My word for the last couple of years has always been agape, loving kindness and compassion. And it's hard to do, but it's a worthwhile pursuit. Just even something as simple as a smile.
And if you have that, though, in your mind, in your heart, I think there's a way that it actually exudes itself somehow.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I kind of feel. But and I read, and I think this is something you have maybe on LinkedIn, that you say about yourself: artist, author, activist, practicing kindness and working for change. And I loved practicing kindness, which I think is kindness. Being kind is so important for us, for our
Yeah.
world. And to see you list it there, I thought, oh, that's such a beautiful thing to say.
Well, I felt like I needed to rebrand myself because I was a widow and by myself, and my middle initial is A. So author, artist, activist kind of came up, and that's where I'm moving. And I still need to get back to the artist piece, but I can feel that beginning to build. And the activist piece, I'm making phone calls and doing donations and reading and writing about things. And the author is just, that seems to be the natural to hit.
Well, you are truly an inspiration, Linda
Oh,
Moran.
thank you, Kate. Thank you.
Well, you are. This is, we may talk about lifelong learning. You're living that. You're just doing
Mhm.
it. Taking time where you weren't certain because life really shifted when Dean passed on. But here you are, having taken the time, and here you are moving on and doing great things and making the world a better place.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we should mention ways people can be in touch, get more information.
Website is lindamoran.org, or you can find me on LinkedIn, on several places, Facebook, Substack. The book's available from Amazon and Barnes & Noble, or you can ask your local bookstore to order it. And I'm just, busy trying to get the word out. So I had a wonderful interview with a woman who is working with a doctor in Rwanda, Africa, to see about bringing elements of hospice to Rwanda. I got the article she'd written yesterday, and I was like, oh my goodness. And when she had first sent me, the questions and how would this apply in Rwanda, I do not have the cultural knowledge to even have a clue, but I'll look into things. So I bought the book of the doctor who's trying to do this, and it's like, that's going to be a whole new exploration. So I'm getting some really good feedback. It makes me realize I am doing the right thing.
Oh, and could you ask for more than to have
No.
that kind of
Mm-mm.
validation that's what is going on?
It's what I felt on those really, really good days in the classroom, or when we would be finishing up a musical, because I did a lot of middle school theater with kids. And it's that kind of feeling that, you made a difference with these guys. So it's
Yeah.
nice to have that back.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Well, Linda Moran, I am so grateful that we've had this time to learn more about you and for your experiences to really make a difference, can make a difference in our lives. And I hope we all take advantage of that. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank you.
greatly.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you.
You're welcome. Linda Moran, good morning, and thank you so greatly for being with us this morning.
Oh, thank you, Kate, for having me.
Well, I want you to know that I'm grateful that we are connecting this morning to talk about the experiences that you share in your book, The Perks of Hospice, Stories of Love, Life, and Loss, where I think we may discover parts of ourselves, of our life, and then that this seems to be somewhat of a springboard for you as well. That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Linda Moran and Sunday Morning Magazine with J.O. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you'd like to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the Listen tab, then Podcasts, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of making space and time for the important pieces of your life. Have a week of the same. And then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.